This video does not aim to address technical matters or provide a cold list of Carlos Sainz's achievements during his Ferrari tenure since joining the Maranello team back in 2021, when he replaced four-time Formula One world champion Sebastian Vettel. It is simply a reflection, with words and punctuation, intended to highlight how unfair, unacceptable, and yes, ridiculous, the hostility of part of the Ferrari fanbase toward the Spaniard is. For some, Carlos Sainz is a sort of Pandora's box, that vessel from Greek mythology containing all the world's evils kept separate from humanity until it was opened. It is raining? Blame it on the government, used to be the saying. Today, it seems Carlos Sainz's name could replace that of political authority. The Spanish driver committed a significant sin and has since faced absurd accusations. He joined Ferrari to play second fiddle, but became, in practice, a driver free to race because his overall performance level was not so far from the one expressed by his Maranello teammate, Charles Leclerc. Let's set the record straight in terms of raw speed. Charles Leclerc is and remains faster than Carlos Sainz. There can be no doubt about this, and the numbers speak for themselves, especially in terms of qualifying laps, where pure speed comes to the forefront. But a driver is not just about that, An effective driver must possess other attributes in their technical arsenal: strategic vision, the ability to read the moment of the race, adaptability to imperfect cars. And unfortunately, there has been plenty of that for Ferrari's skill in guiding engineers' technical development and many other elements needed to fight for victory in Formula One. Carlos Sainz possesses all these qualities and has proven it during his 4 years with the Italian side. The numbers are plain to see and cannot be disputed even by the most extreme haters, those who in recent days have been showing the worst of themselves on the usual social networks, public forums turned into outlets for questionable opinions that should make their authors ashamed. Many laugh in a completely foolish manner at the downgrade the Spaniard supposedly made by going to Williams for the 2025 Formula One championship. Probably Carlos Sainz has been a victim of his own technical caliber. Someone like him would have been very useful for a top team like Red Bull, though not to Max Verstappen, who prefers to have a Sergio Perez or a Liam Lawson by his side rather than someone with high-level technical competence and mental resilience. For the Dutchman, it is better to race alongside a subordinate knight than a structured and challenging driver. And it seems that team principal Christian Horner is willing to accept this situation in order to keep his star driver happy, despite the fact that in 2024, Red Bull was out of the battle for the World Constructors' Championship due to the extremely poor performance of the Mexican driver. Mercedes also considered the Spaniard, but his candidacy was dismissed not due to a professional shortfall, but because they decided to focus on an internal investment, the young Italian driver Andrea Kimi Antonelli, for a transitional year like 2025. In short, Carlos Sainz was caught up in circumstances and had to choose a noble team in decline, but one with solid ambitions and the potential to slowly climb back up, possibly leveraging the regulatory overhaul in the 2026 Formula One season. The Spanish driver performed well at Ferrari but had to give up his seat to a 7-time Formula One world champion, an opportunity which the top management of the Maranello team could not afford to pass up. Carlos Sainz became a casualty of the new direction. Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur has always been very close to Charles Leclerc, having mentored him, and has long-standing ties to Lewis Hamilton, whose career he followed from the start. This does not mean that the relationship between the French manager and the Spanish driver was compromised, far from it. Letting Carlos Sainz go at the end of the 2024 Formula One campaign was a painful decision that could have caused internal tensions at Ferrari. If this did not happen, it is also thanks to Carlos Sainz's professionalism, as he consistently prioritized the Maranello team's welfare. In popular discourse, however, the narrative suggests that Carlos Sainz was self-serving. And why? Because in certain situations he raced, battling with his Ferrari teammate. That is what a professional driver does, especially in a context where the team principal allows freedom to duel. This is an obvious fact that some keyboard warriors have chosen to ignore in their far-fetched reconstructions. Why all this hostility? There isn't a single answer. It is hard to decipher the psychological dynamics of fans, driven more by violent impulses than by rationality. Perhaps Carlos Sainz is paying the price for the original sin of being chosen by former Ferrari team principal Mattia Binotto, who selected him to replace Sebastian Vettel, when it was believed the German driver would in fact be offered a contract renewal with the Maranello team. Ferrari boss Mattia Binotto liked some aspects of what he saw in Carlos Sainz: competitive, capable of scoring heavily, but intelligent and with a civilized personality which would not cause waves in a team which was centered around its chosen one. Charles Leclerc. Sebastian Vettel, as a proud four-time world champion, could never be in that support role to a junior. The dynamic was just wrong, and that's why he was let go. Vettel, too, had suffered a loss of empowerment. He had been recruited by Luca di Montezemolo on the recommendation of Michael Schumacher to be the new Schumacher, the man to lead the team into its next phase of glory. But Luca di Montezemolo was gone by the time Seb arrived, and the new management did not share his vision of why the former Red Bull driver was that man, almost challenging him to prove it to them every race weekend, making things even more difficult for the four-time Formula One world champion in Maranello. The current Audi executive is another figure who faces harsh criticism from the tifosi, some of which is justified. For a large segment of the Ferrari fanbase, which has often been excessively divisive, the Spaniard's arrival seemed to displace a red legend like Sebastian Vettel, and this has always rubbed some the wrong way. Yet Carlos Sainz's story in red is that of a great professional who performed with his highs and the usual setbacks every driver faces throughout their motorsport career. Mistakes and missteps were not absent, but Carlos Sainz was always close to Charles Leclerc, both on and off the track. Seeing a driver so committed to the Ferrari cause being treated so crudely is painful and an affront to reason. In a recent interview, Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur expressed that, in all his years in racing, he had never witnessed two teammates so intensely focused on each other's actions. The French manager remarked on how incredible they were in pushing each other, both on the track and off it, through the amount of work they invested. Fred Vasseur believed that this competitive rivalry between them had contributed to the Maranello team's performance. Meanwhile, it is also worth pointing out that Charles Leclerc, arguably the fastest driver on the grid over a single lap, has outqualified Carlos Sainz by an average of 0.037 seconds this year. That's what Carlos Sainz brings to a team, and this year adversity has seemed to bring even more from him. That Melbourne victory just days after leaving his hospital bed from his appendectomy was incredible. His dominance of Mexico after ambushing a pass on Max Verstappen was from the absolute top drawer. Well, his task at Williams sees him facing more adversity, but he's now empowered as the multiple Grand Prix winner who is going to help them fight their way up the grid. Free yourselves from this prejudice and enjoy Ferrari's progress, giving due credit to a driver who helped write a few pages of the prancing horse's illustrious history. A history that will always transcend the individuals who built it, whether their names are Michael Schumacher, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen, Lewis Hamilton, or any other driver who, now or in the future, embraces the Ferrari cause.